Have you been wondering why the US needs so much more data center capacity and acreage than other countries? Any other country? Well, I can promise you this, it's worse than you think. Let's dive in. To start, let's compare the US with China, our AI rival and a country with over three times as many people as us. China has 369 data centers. The US has 4,280. With regard to global market share, China has 10% of the world's capacity. The US has 38.5%. And just 6 years ago, China had 40% of the capacity. China also usually builds their data centers in urban vertical structures, whereas the US tends to build giant rural mega campuses. At first glance, you might think a little like I did, well, this doesn't seem all that bad because we've become the world's AI and data hub. There's a lot of ways you can benefit from that. Major providers like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft host data here in the US for the entire world. And if that's the case, then we should be benefiting because that's exactly what these companies have promised. They promise rate reimbursements and more stability for the grid as many of these centers build some of their own energy capacity, like on-site solar farms. A win-win for the American taxpayer and corporate America, just like it always happens, right? Well, let's take a look. Here's a picture of the US showing how much data center capacity has increased in each state versus how much utility bills have gone up on average. As you can see, this is not red state dominant. Blue states like mine are some of the worst offenders, and people are paying it through their utility bills. So what often happens is the data centers will in fact pay for the upfront cost of infrastructure and connection to the grid. But then ratepayers are reimbursing them over time through completely skewed crony agreements. China doesn't have this problem. For one, they're not trying to hold the world's capacity, just their own people. And they have very strict rules in regards to power consumption and data protection. That's the other big part of this. Because the US is basically the Wild West of AI. Just like with offshore banks, companies want to base their data here so they can bypass those pesky regulations, especially in the EU. You can also buy cheap land all over the place here. We have so much private property available. In contrast, in other countries, more of that is public land. So US corporations are making money from you in order to provide the world with cheap, unregulated AI. But the truth is that this is nothing new. We became the world's superpower by first exploiting our own before we moved on to the rest of the world. China did the same thing. Cheap labor and resources make superpowers. They can't really do the cheap labor thing here, and so they're bypassing labor completely. When this happened following the Industrial Revolution, it was one of the things that resulted in the Great Depression. People only have so much to feed the greed. You eventually reach a breaking point, and I think that's coming. My utility bills are twice what they were 4 years ago, and I just paid $6.20 a gallon of gas. It's unsustainable, and it's all because the rich have an unquenchable thirst for wealth and power. The US is currently leading the world in AI, but you probably won't see any benefit from that, quite the opposite. And this one is both parties. Dems are just as sold out to Silicon Valley. Thankfully, as there usually are, there's good people trying to fix it. Here in California, the Senate is trying to pass SB 57, the Ratepayer Protection Act. This would forbid utilities from shifting data center interconnection cost onto residential families. It requires that they sign 12-year binding contracts to ensure that they pay their fair share. The California Public Utilities Commission is also trying to make sure that data center premiums reimburse ratepayers. If you're in California, please call your state senator and ask them to pass SB 57. If not, ask your state to do something similar. I don't think it's America first for the rich to get richer off the world on our backs.